of it. Very nice, very nice. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, today we are joined by over 125 residents of my riding. Of course, they haven't arrived yet. The Côte St. Luc Senior Men's Club is the largest senior men's organization in Quebec. With over 520 members, it plays a huge role in the life of our community. Whether through its breakfast meetings, current events group, golf day, or bowling leagues, it keeps its members young and vibrant. They take care of each other and are a social network beyond compare. The club was originally started when our World War II vets were retiring and looking for other ways to give back. Today, members continue that tradition by participating in organizations like Volunteer Cities on Patrol and assisting our Legion with their Poppy campaign. I wish I could be welcoming President Sid Cronish, past President Sid Margulies, and Peter Sternberg, an entire group of proud Côte St. Lucers and Canadians to Ottawa. I was honored to work closely with the club for many years as mayor and will continue to do so as an MP. May they go from strength to strength.
The honourable member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to recognize Rebecca Runyons, a very talented young violinist who traveled to New York City over the weekend and performed at the world-famous Carnegie Hall as part of the bicentennial celebrations for the State University of New York. Rebecca's musical interest began at the young age of 4. She has since mastered her craft performing on stage in Washington, D.C., Houston, Texas, on the battlefield in Gettysburg, and right here in Ottawa. Although Rebecca is currently completing her post-secondary education in Potsdam, she is well known for volunteering her talents at home. Over the years, she's helped raise funds for the Heart and Stroke Foundation, the Cornwall Community Hospital, the Canadian Cancer Society, and the Cornwall Hospice, just to name a few. Mr. Speaker, Rebecca and her parents, Lisa and David Runyons, are excellent examples of dedicated community volunteers in Stormont, Dundas, and South Glengarry. I am fortunate to know Rebecca and her family, and I would like to wish her much success in her bright future ahead. Thank you.
Here, here, here.
Honourable député de Lanty-Labelle.
The honourable member for Lanty-Labelle.
15 years ago today, with Arthur Dent well established in his new life, Ford Prefect returned to this mostly harmless place for Douglas Adams. Marvin the paranoid android was, of course, left behind. Now, Mr. Speaker, anyone who has read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is aware that planet Earth is little more than a computer built on the orders of mice to determine the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And while I must wrap up this statement brought to some of us by our resident babblefish before it is destroyed to make way for a hyper-partisan bypass, it is a great honor to know, Mr. Speaker, that you, me, and all of our colleagues brought together here today by the Infinite Improbability Drive will forevermore have our names listed together on a plaque here in Centre Block, marked without ever having determined the question, with the answer to life, the universe, and everything. The number of our Parliament, 42. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable député de Outremont.
The member for Outremont.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago, Reverend John Beach and a group of dedicated volunteers fulfilled a dream by setting up a community organization to help all underprivileged people in the Mile End neighborhood.
The Mile End Mission in 1995 and grew that seed into a community tree which it has become. Roz saw to it that half of the board of directors were members who used the mission's services. She understood that inclusiveness was the only way to build true community. Aujourd'hui,
Today, Lou Hashley is watching over the destiny of the mission. The mission offers much more than just hot meals, bags of grocery support, and access to a lawyer. The Mile End mission does a lot of good for the community.
thank you on behalf of the many people they help to the folks of the Mile End Mission and wish them many more years of service.
The honourable member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Niagara region has lost a true leader. His worship, Stan Pettit, the former mayor of the township of Wainfleet here in the province of Ontario for 28 years, and a champion for his community, passed away suddenly this past week. Our thoughts are with Shirley, Stan's wife, as she and an entire community mourn Stan's passing, while also celebrating the full and inspiring life he had led. His passion, his commitment to his constituents ensured that the Township of Wainfleet was well represented, especially at Niagara Regional Council. Stan's passion to build sustainable and prosperous community, one of which provided opportunities for younger generations to stay and live in Niagara. This vision drove him and motivated all of those who he worked with on a daily basis. I stand here today to say thank you to His Worship, Mayor Stan Pettit, for everything he did for his community and the Niagara region. We live in a better place because of him. Stan, your contributions will be everlasting.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Lille, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, did you notice my new haircut? As you can see, I have no hair left, and it's because today I participated in the Lucan 2016 Shaved Heads Challenge. And Mr. Speaker, I did so willingly, but many Canadian children who have cancer don't have a choice. They don't ask to lose their hair because they have undergo cancer treatment. I want to thank my leader and colleagues and all colleagues in the House who, by shaving their heads or helping, will enable me to meet the objective I have set for myself. I'd invite all friends, members, and you, Mr. Speaker, as well, to meet me after question period in the foyer of the House to support me through any kind of donation that's possible. And then in La Pocatière tomorrow, many fellow citizens will do the same thing to help fight youth cancer. As a father, a grandfather, and a parliamentarian, I got involved in this event this year, and I thank the community for supporting me. The Honourable Member for Beaume-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, I have a dream, and that dream is to see a parliament where all parliamentarians are bilingual or in the process of becoming bilingual. There are about 100 members of this House who can communicate easily in both official languages. In addition, 136 other colleagues are currently taking language classes. Let's find a way to enable our parliamentary colleagues who aren't participating to have easier access to these language classes. These languages are our pride. They represent us, represent who we are, represent our strength and our wealth. This dream, as part of Canada's 150th anniversary, is certainly possible with the participation and goodwill of all of our honourable colleagues.
Of the Standing Committee on Official Languages, I wish that this dream comes true.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, museums in Canada and around the world will celebrate International Museum Day on May 18. It also happens to be the day that I met my wife 27 years ago. Oh. This year's theme is Museum and Cultural Landscapes. In a country like ours, where our rich natural heritage is such an important part of our culture and historic events that have shaped us, this is particularly appropriate. In Richmond Hill, Museum of the Street is a new kind of museum experience, taking away the four walls of the traditional museum and opening up the heritage of the town for all to see. This always open and free journey of discovery that you are the tour guide through the streets is showcasing the obvious and sometimes the not so obvious, all signposts to our fascinating past. I encourage all Canadians to visit Museum of Streets in Richmond Hill and all other wonderful institutions and take advantage of all that they can offer. Thank you.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak about a real-life hero and his family. His name is Tim Michalchuk, a determined, spirited, and unwavering individual. Tim's partner, Shannon, was diagnosed with MS over 5 years ago and recently suffered a relapse. To help raise awareness and to save Shannon, Tim set out on foot from Prince George on April 2nd to walk 1 million steps to stop MS. On April 30th, Tim arrived in Vancouver and completed that journey. He capped it off with a wedding proposal, Mr. Speaker, and she said yes. However, just 1 day after arriving home, Tim and his family lost their home to a fire. And while his family is safe, they lost everything. I think I speak for all members of this House in offering my condolences to Tim and his family. Having met Tim on his journey, I know it is the same fighting spirit that will help Tim and his family persevere during this very difficult time. Tim, we are so very proud of you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Merci.
The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, Harry Greenwood is the West Vancouver Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year. Harry is a former Royal Canadian Navy seaman, decorated World War II vet, and recipient of France's Legion of Honor Medal. He sent me a photo once shaking the former Prime Minister's hand saying, "I don't think he's going to vote for you." Harry is a Scotsman who lived in Hamilton and dedicated himself to the labour movement and Mohawk College before moving to West Vancouver. I met him when he was 75 through his service on the Library Board, the Harmony Arts Festival, the Senior Centre, and of course, the Royal Canadian Legion. When he accepted his award, he dedicated it in the name of all volunteers. At 91, he lives by an example. It's a privilege to learn from Harry, to call him my friend, and to recognize his service to Canada in the House of Commons.
The honourable member for North Vancouver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to inform the House that Dr. Don Mavenick of the University of British Columbia's Department of Engineering and a resident of my riding of North Vancouver is this year's recipient of the prestigious Gold Medal Award from Engineers Canada. The Gold Medal Award bestows distinction on outstanding engineers and recognizes exceptional achievements in their chosen fields. Don is an internationally renowned expert in wastewater treatment technology. He's previously received international acclaim for leading the development of a cost-effective system to recover phosphates from municipal wastewater systems, which have been subsequently deployed around North America. Wastewater treatment systems and technology are critical to the well-being of our communities and to the health of our environment. Don's work has created tremendous environmental benefits while concurrently demonstrating how clean technology innovation can be a driver of economic opportunity and growth.
The honourable member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend I was honoured to attend the induction ceremony for 10 new inductees into the Owen Sound Sports Hall of Fame. Owen Sound is truly a hotbed for talented hockey, lacrosse, and fastball players, and this year's inductees are a testament to this. Athletes Curtis Sanford, Marilyn McComb, Jeff McDougall, Don McLeod, and Jim Chipper McRae made for an impressive group of inductees this year. The class of 2016 also included Brian Seaman under the Builder category, and special merit inductees included Peter Rainsford, Robert Aiken, and Mr. John Garvey, who umpired for more than 70 years. Finally, the 1977 King Farms fastball team was also inducted, and in 1977, the King Farms team defeated Sault Ste. Marie to win the OASA All-Ontario Championship. Mr. Speaker, I extend my congratulations to each of this year's inductees and thank them for the many years of sporting memories.
Hear, hear, hear. And I have to potato the Nickel Belt.
The honourable member for Nickel Belt.
Speaker, as the MP for Nickel Belt and Greater Sudbury, a region that has built a strong and vibrant place for mining innovation and research, I am pleased to recognize the 20th anniversary of National Mining Week. Our government is committed to ensuring that mining remains a source of economic growth, with 375,000 workers being the largest employer of Indigenous people in Canada. Le budget 2016...
Budget 2016 includes measures like extending the mineral exploration tax credit and investing in projects that support mining and minerals research. Thanks to focus on innovation and a sound regulatory regime that has the confidence of Canadians, the mining industry has a promising future. I urge honourable members to join me in acknowledging the importance of the Canadian mining industry.
Let's celebrate our innovative, talented, hard-working miners all across Canada. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are rightly proud of our healthcare system, which has become a defining feature of our country and our identity. And much of what we celebrate, in large part, nurses deliver. Nowhere is this more obvious than in the North, where doctors are a scarce resource and communities lean on nurses and nurse practitioners to get so much of the job done. And as our population ages, the role nurses play will become more vital to our national well-being. We can keep that in mind as we mark National Nursing Week, which includes International Nurses Day and commemorates Florence Nightingale's birthday on May 12th. And while many of our fantastic nurses are men, it's no secret that a great many more are women. And it is these nurses who help us through some of our most difficult and vulnerable times, playing so many roles from caregiver to confidant to counselor. The slogan for National Nurse Week is, "With you every step of the way." And one only has to encounter our health system in a time of need to learn how true that is. Merci à tous les gardes-malades.
Thank you to you all.
The honourable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was moved to see my colleagues in the House wearing yellow roses in recognition of Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. CF is a disease that affects over 4,000 Canadians. Currently, there is no cure for this disease, but for individuals with advanced CF, transplantation can be an important step in their treatment. The importance of organ donation and transplantation was brought very close to home for my family earlier this past February when my beautiful niece Jillian received a life-saving double lung transplant. Words cannot express the gratitude we feel to the family who donated the lungs of their loved one. I encourage all Canadians to continue supporting the Canadian Cystic Fibrosis Foundation as they search for a cure, and consider becoming a registered organ donor. Your decision, whether signing your own donor card or talking about this with your family, may save a life.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, as an oncology nurse, I'm proud to commemorate National Nursing Week and International Nursing Day on May 12th. Upon reflection of my own personal experiences, I will share a poem I have written in recognition of all dedicated nurses. We're there for you on your darkest night to make sure your next has more light. 4,000 from coast to coast, our numbers stand. With pride, the care of Canadians lies in our hands. Extended shifts, short on resources, we do not quiver. Safe and effective care we're honored to deliver. When you are ill, do not fright, we're here to stay, and we will hold your hand every step of the way. Thank you.
Bravo. Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable chef,
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I've spent the last few days in Northern Alberta meeting with first responders and evacuees and volunteers, and I can tell the House that there's a deep sense of gratitude for the compassion and the support and the donations that have come in from across the country. But, Mr. Speaker, the faster we get this community up and running, the better for our entire economy. I know the Prime Minister has created a committee, but I also want to know if he can please fast-track infrastructure funding so that we can get Fort McMurray back to work as soon as possible.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her extraordinary work and leadership while she was on the ground meeting with firefighters and evacuees. I, too, look forward to meeting with many of these unsung heroes and so many of the evacuees when I get out on Friday to survey the challenges that we all face together, which is why, as the member highlighted, we are going to be putting together an ad hoc cabinet committee to bring bear the efforts of the entire government, from infrastructure to health to emergency management to a broad range of issues together to help rebuild and create once again a strong future so the people of Fort McMurray can continue to build a great future for all of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, speaking of committees, this morning the Liberals stacked the deck and announced a committee that gives them complete control over changes to our voting system. That is not right. When you change the rules of democracy, everyone should have a say. Minister have so little faith in Canadians that he thinks Liberals can change what every vote means in this country without taking it to the people in a referendum.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
You'll forgive me, Mr. Speaker, if I find it a bit rich coming from the party that brought in the Unfair Elections Act without any consultation to try and stack the deck in their favour. Canadians heard loudly and clearly that we made the commitment that this was going to be the last election held under the first-past-the-post system, and we are committed to doing that. Canadians also chose to support us with a majority and are expecting us to deliver on the promises that we gave.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what is he so afraid of? If his plan is so great, then why doesn't he take it to the people? Mr. Speaker, when you change the rules of the game, everyone has the right to have a say. Canadians are capable of taking their own decisions. So why is the Prime Minister not trusting Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Quite the contrary, Mr. Speaker. We enormously trust Canadians, and that is why we have been very clear in the election campaign that this would be the last election contested under the first-past-the-post system. But also, that is why we are going to consult widely with all Canadians across the country to talk about a better electoral system, a stronger democracy that will better reflect their concerns and give a government that respects their priorities as we do.
Mr. Speaker, in today's press conference, the Minister of Democratic Renewal said, and I quote, "A referendum is one of a number of tools that can be used to engage Canadians." And the House Leader said it's premature to decide whether or not to hold a referendum. They might want to speak to the Prime Minister, whose position since last June and up to about 2 minutes ago was that a referendum is unacceptable because, I assume, a government is not guaranteed to win. Heaven forfend. So here's the question. Is it premature to commit to a referendum because the Prime Minister will only make that commitment if he knows he's guaranteed to win?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, that the Conservatives suddenly discovered how important it is to engage and listen to Canadians is a little bit silly at this point. Right. The fact is, we are committed to engaging with Canadians right across the country. We are focused, as we made the clear commitment to during the election campaign, to making sure that this election will be the last one held under first-past-the-post. We are confident that Canadians are going to be able to work with us and create the right electoral system that will serve this country well in the coming years.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is committed to making it the last election under the first-past-the-post, whether Canadians want that or not. He is not prepared to allow democracy to speak. At today's press conference, the Minister stated that committing to a referendum too early, as opposed to at all, would be like putting the cart before the horse. To which one of the reporters in the room responded, deciding that the 2015 election was the last under first-past-the-post before coming up with an alternative is the real act of putting the cart before the horse. I agree. There is every possibility that the proposed new voting system will be less fair, less open, and less popular than the status quo. Therefore, it should have to defeat the status quo in a referendum.
Right Honourable the Prime Minister.
We made it very, very clear in the last election that if we were elected, we would ensure that this would be the last election under first-past-the-post. And it wasn't the compellingness of our arguments that convinced Canadians. It was what the last government did with their majority that convinced Canadians that this must be the last election under first-past-the-post.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
As we've just seen, Liberals have time and again repeated that the current electoral system is, quote, unfair and that it produces false majorities. That is, until they got elected. The facts are over 60% of Canadians did not vote for the Liberal Party. This Prime Minister seemed to acknowledge the problem, but then he stacked the committee so that Liberals can alone impose the next voting system on everyone. Will the Prime Minister reverse his undemocratic decision and allow for a fully representative committee where each member has the right to vote? Isn't that the essence of democracy?
Right Honourable Prime Minister. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The essence of democracy is that we put forward a very, very clear plan to make sure that this was the last election after.
Members will come to order. We know this is a partisan place. It's supposed to be adversarial. That's fine. And there are going to be strong arguments on both sides, and that's good. But let's listen to them, please. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has the floor.
Canadians voted overwhelmingly for change in the last election, and we proposed real change that will make this the last election under first past the post. Our committee actually is the first committee to pull together members from every single party. We're going to work seriously and focused in a way that will bring forward a better alternative for Canadians. And we trust Canadians in their capacity to get the governments they elected. And if you choose not...
The honourable member for Outremont.
Does the Prime Minister not understand? Members from 2 of those committees are being denied the right to vote. He has to change that.
It's hard for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, to trust that the fix isn't already in. The government holds the majority on the committee, and we know that the Liberal Party has already made its choice with the so-called preferential ballot, which works in their favour. Can the Prime Minister reassure Canadians and promise that his government will not act unilaterally without the support of all the other parties? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We were very clear in the election campaign that we would replace the first past the post system. We were clear that this would be the last election under that system, and that's what we're going to do. The Canadians gave us a majority. We are going to use that majority to make it harder to elect a government that does not represent the point of view of all Canadians. That's what Canadians are expecting from us, and that's what I'm going to do.
Member for Outremont.
So, he's waiting. People are expecting their parliamentarians to be a model of democracy, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Foreign Affairs said in this House last month that he would block the export permits to Saudi Arabia if ever this military equipment is used to violate human rights. Well, the videos leave no doubt Saudi Arabia is using this kind of equipment to attack civilians. A direct question for the Prime Minister. Does he not find that this video shows actions that violate human rights? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Said from the very beginning that the Canadian government, led by me, would not cancel a contract signed by a previous government. And indeed, the leader of the New Democratic Party pointed out, you don't cancel a commercial contract retroactively. It's just not done. Right. The NDP member for London Fanshawe said, I said very distinctly, in no way wishy-washy, that this is a signed contract and we are going to be honouring that contract. We are keeping the promise we made to Canadians since well before the election campaign.
The honourable member for Outremont.
About the export permits that the Liberals signed after the election campaign, after the United Nations reports on human rights in January, and after today's video, the government has no excuse to continue with this arms sale to Saudi Arabia so that they can crush civilians with that type of equipment, Mr. Speaker. There is now evidence, and we want to know, is this really the first piece of evidence that the Prime Minister has seen of Saudi Arabia abusing human rights with armoured vehicles? We have trouble believing that no one in his government knew this before it appeared in the Globe and Mail.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite was very, very clear during the election campaign that he understood how important it is for Canada to hold up to its word. We need to we need to be able to project on the world that when Canada agrees to something, it sticks to its word. He pretended to understand that in the election campaign. He pretended to understand that whenever he visited London. But the fact of the matter is he's throwing his own words out the window because we need to make sure that we are respected in the world stage by keeping our words.
Yeah. For Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, the Liberal government's words don't match their actions. The Minister of Democratic Institutions claims she wants to put partisan interests aside and that it's truly not about a skewed partisan interest. Except all decisions on electoral reform will be made by 6 Liberals who form the majority on the committee. And she also said that the ultimate decision on what system will be proposed will be made by Cabinet. If this really isn't about partisan interests, why not allow all Canadians to have a direct say on electoral reform in a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it's a good day for Canadian democracy. Today, we delivered on our commitment to establish an all-party parliamentary committee to study and bring forward recommendations to bring our electoral system into the 21st century. We've taken a unique approach, and we've shown leadership by including all parties, the Bloc, the Green Party, the NDP, the Conservatives, around this table. And, Mr. Speaker, I'll add that this is the only committee that has all parties at the table, and I look forward to the collaborative approach we'll all take.
Young member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, it will only be a good day for democracy when they commit to a referendum. The Minister of Democratic Institutions claims that all voices should be heard and treated with respect on electoral reform. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister insists that he will change the system without the permission of Canadians. He's against a referendum because he knows the people won't support his undemocratic changes. So if the government truly cares about what each and every Canadian has to say, why are they so afraid to hold a referendum?
Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great day for Canadian democracy. We committed to establishing a committee which is established to ensure that there are 338 town halls conducted across this great nation, and the onus is on all of us as members of this House to make sure that the voices of those who don't currently have a say in politics is heard. We need to have a conversation about ways to engage young people, women, new Canadians, seniors, those with disabilities and exceptionalities, and Indigenous persons into this conversation. That is the debate.
Bravo. Every now and then, members may hear something from other members that they don't like. But in this place, we want to show respect, I think, for this institution, for the Canadians who sent us here. We want to recognize that we have young people in the galleries. And let's listen, please. The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, if Liberals feel that the very system that elected them is illegitimate, then they cannot claim to have a mandate to make such a fundamental change to our voting system. And now they're setting up a committee that is designed to give them the answer that is best for them. And they have given themselves a majority on the committee as they attempt to bring in changes that will solely benefit them. If they think that the system that elected them is illegitimate, why are the Liberals giving themselves a majority on the committee?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it is out of a great deal of respect for the people who put us here and these democratic institutions that we've committed to reforming the existing system and to modernize it by bringing it into the 21st century. It is out of a great deal of respect that we've committed to reaching out to all Canadians across this diverse nation and ensuring that those who don't normally participate in the electoral process, like young people, women, Indigenous persons, many seniors, those with disabilities and exceptionalities, are included in this conversation.
Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, it's arrogance that they're giving themselves a majority on the committee when 60% of Canadians voted against them. The minister keeps claiming that she believes Canadians should be consulted, but she refuses to hold the ultimate consultation, a referendum. The only way to ensure that the Liberals are not allowed to rig a process to give themselves the outcome that they want is to have the Canadian people have the final say. Will the minister commit to placing the final decision in the hands of Canadians through a referendum, or is she too enamored with basic dictatorships like China?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I come to this place with a great deal of humility and appreciation for these democratic institutions that so many across this globe would give anything to have. We have committed to consulting with Canadians. Canadians will have the first say and the final say, and I'd really appreciate it if members in this House
Members will come to order. I know there are strong views, but we take turns. We hear from each side. And there will be strong statements from each side. We want to listen. And I'm having trouble hearing the answers. So let's listen. The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I'm having trouble hearing myself. So while we're having a conversation about respect for democratic institutions, let's have a conversation about respect and decorum in this place.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, I think that whether the minister wants it or not, this is really a very bad day for democracy in Canada. This is just the first day of this Liberal process of democratic reform, and it's already clear that Liberals have no interest in truly listening to Canadians. But I offer them the chance to prove me wrong, Mr. Speaker. As the Liberals want to change the rules of democracy, will they commit today in this House to do the right thing and consult all Canadians through a referendum?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great day for Canadian democracy. It's a bad day for partisan politics that aims to divide Canadians and pit neighbour against neighbour. Our approach will be a principled approach. Our approach will be an inclusive approach. Our approach will be one based on respect for Canadians and the need to hear from those whose voices are often silenced.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, North Athabasca. So, overall, they don't want to give the population the permission to speak out, and, well, I don't think that's a good thing. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that on this side of the House, we will continue to defend the idea of a referendum because we think that this is a fundamental thing. But this isn't the only worry that Canadians should have, Mr. Speaker. This process has been set up without consulting the opposition parties. The Prime Minister even apologized in this House for claiming otherwise. Mr. Speaker, does the Minister believe that 10 elected members are better placed than all Canadians to change the basic foundation of our democracy?
Mr. Speaker, while I recognize that it may be comforting for some to stay in the past, in the 21st century, there are many other tools and ways to engage Canadians in important conversations, like one about democratic institutions. We are confident that the individuals around the committee table will put their narrow partisan interests aside and serve the Canadians who have put us here.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavut, EU. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals say that reconciliation with Indigenous peoples is at the heart of their priorities. However, today, the Department of Justice is before the courts to fight against a survivor of the St. Anne's residential school. And his story is absolutely revolting, Mr. Speaker. The federal government deliberately hid documents proving the abuse suffered by the victim. But due to a lack of proof, he's been refused all compensation. How can the minister justify her opposition to a new hearing to the rights for this survivor?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable colleague for his question today. The Government of Canada is committed to fairness in the independent assessment process. We have seen the negotiation that just was settled in Newfoundland and Labrador with residential school survivors. We're prepared to cooperate and ensure that all the necessary information is provided in legal proceedings, and we have consented to many of the claimants' requests and parliamentary beliefs, Mr. Speaker, such as those requests that have been outlined in the past. Thank you.
For Timmins, James Bay.
So the Prime Minister promised to be different, to offer reconciliation. That rings hollow to the survivors of St. Anne's Residential School who are fighting in provincial court again for their rights.
Hear, hear.
So let's put it on the record. The Justice Department suppressed police evidence. They protected the name of a serial predator, and then they had the cases thrown out on bogus technicalities. Now, surely the Justice Minister knows that suppressing police evidence isn't reconciliation. It's not even legal. So will she call off the dogs and stop defending the predators and stand up once and for all for the victims of the indescribable abuse at that institution?
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his question. And Mr. Speaker, he knows that the Government of Canada is committed to achieving full reconciliation with former students, Mr. Speaker. We've seen that this week at the ruling in Newfoundland and Labrador in the negotiated settlement. Mr. Speaker, the member also knows that we have compiled with all of Justice Perrow's orders regarding documents related to St. Anne's. We have met all of the timelines, Mr. Speaker, including an updated narrative that has at least 1,200 pages that have been submitted, and the member knows that.
Now the member for Red Deer Lacombe.
So, Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister went to Washington for the state dinner, he put together his personal entourage of 44 people, which included his mom, his in-laws, the Liberal Party president, and the chief Liberal bagman. But one name noticeably missing from the invite list was the name of the Natural Resources Minister. So why did the Prime Minister give preferential access to Liberal hacks over his own ministries?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we've said in the House of Commons, the Prime Minister has said a number of times, this was a historic visit for Canada. The other side of the House, Mr. Speaker, is struggling with how a guest list at a state dinner is drawn up. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because the last time there was a state dinner was 1997, and that's why we think that this honour afforded Canada and the progress made on substantive files that are important to Canadians, border security, pre-clearance, climate change, energy, are a testimony to this important relationship that we value so much.
Bravo. Now the member for Red Deer Lacombe.
So, Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise the Liberals are not being open and transparent about their trip to Washington. The more we know, the more concerned we get. We now know that it cost almost $13,000 for just 3 ministers and their staff to go on this junket, but the numbers keep changing, Mr. Speaker. Last week they claimed it was $25,000 for 44 people, and no one believes that number, Mr. Speaker. And so can the Liberals be honest with taxpayers and tell them what the actual total cost of this trip was?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, there seems to be some confusion on the other side. On the one hand, he wants us to include other ministers and other individuals, and at the same time, he says that those expenses are unreasonable. What we've said, Mr. Speaker, is that the expenses for the trip to Washington were disclosed proactively. Our government has led with open and transparent disclosure of expenses, and every single one, Mr. Speaker, of those expenses were justified because of the substantive and important progress made during that visit to improve the lives of Canadians and strengthen this critical bilateral relationship.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, well, we already knew that the Liberal Party of Canada takes precedence over the interests of everyday Canadians. Once again, the delegation that accompanied the Prime Minister to Washington, well, its composition is troubling. Mr. Speaker, why did the President of the Liberal Party of Canada participate in that trip? And has she become someone who speaks on behalf of this government? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, my colleague across the way appears to have a hard time understanding how the list of invitees to the state dinner at the White House was established. And that's because the last time that Canada had this honor, it was in 1997. This was a historic visit where an enormous amount of progress was made on major files that affect the lives of Canadians, like climate change, like border security, like the energy issue. Mr. Speaker, we are extremely proud of our Canadian participation in Washington. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, we've learned recently that the trip to Washington for just 3 ministers and 2 employees cost almost $13,000. And yet last week, the government said that it cost just $25,000 to send 44 people. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has no scruples. Can the Liberals be honest with Canadian taxpayers and tell them exactly how much this trip cost? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the number of times that my colleague across the way has repeated exaggerated ideas is troubling. We have been proactive. We disclosed all the travel costs for our minister's trip to Washington. This was an important economic mission to Washington for Canada, and despite the fact that my colleagues across the way don't like the list of invitees, well, there's a huge list of things that we've accomplished on that trip. We're proud of the Canadian delegation and what they accomplished.
Mr. Speaker, opioid overdoses are a growing epidemic across the country. Hundreds of people are dying, and British Columbia has declared a public health emergency. Yet, the Minister of Health abandons regulations requiring tamper-resistant forms of these powerful prescription drugs. She claims they won't solve the problem because they only apply to a single narcotic. But the solution is obvious. Make the entire class of opioids, including fentanyl, tamper-proof, as the U.S. is doing. So why won't the minister do so and save lives?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague opposite has raised a very important matter, and that is the matter of prescription drug abuse in this country. It is something with which I have the deepest concern, and I am pleased to work with my colleagues, including those in British Columbia who have particularly led the way on this file. It will require a comprehensive approach, one that includes prescriber guidelines, one that includes patient information, one that includes treatment, one that includes prevention. We will address all matters of evidence to make sure that we have the best way forward and a comprehensive plan.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers have been paying extra fees for years for insured services in full violation of the Canada Health Act without the federal government doing a thing. And in the Auditor General of Quebec's report tabled yesterday, we learn that extra fees are out of control. The poorest Quebecers are the ones who are paying the price for this two-tier medicine. The minister keeps telling us that she's discussing this with her colleague in Quebec, that she believes in the Canada Health Act, but what is she waiting for to enforce it? The Honourable Minister of Health. I thank my colleague for that important question. We, as I've already said, fully endorse the principles of the Canada Health Act, which are intended to ensure that all Canadians have access to all medical services and hospital services that are necessary according to their needs and not as a result of their ability to pay. I have always committed to working with all of my partners across the country in order to strengthen our universal health care system while maintaining the principles of the Canada Health Act.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Science. A Science Odyssey is 10 days of discovery and innovation from Friday, May 6th to May 15th. It is an opportunity to discover the richness of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in Canada. What is the government of Canada doing to encourage all Canadians to learn about and engage with the scientific research and to seriously consider a career in science?
Science.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague, a scientist himself, for that important question. I'm working to promote a culture where young people and the public are excited about science. Last week, I announced the winners of NSERC's Promo Science program, awarded to groups that promote science throughout the year. This week, I've hosted Space Day and Coding Day to bring the joy of science to parliamentarians. I encourage all members to check out science.gc.ca for a Science Odyssey event in your community.
For Graham Clary McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In January, the Minister of Agriculture hired a failed Liberal candidate with a vested interest in his department to be his Chief of Staff. At the time, it was clear that her massive fortune presented a clear conflict of interest, but the Minister insisted otherwise. Now the Ethics Commissioner has ruled that a conflict of interest does exist, and the Chief of Staff must recuse herself of most major files in the Minister's department. If she can't talk about agriculture and if she can't talk about trade, what is she still doing there?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure my honourable colleague, this House, and Canadians that my Chief of Staff has completed all the requirements of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner and will be abiding by all guidelines set forward. This includes a conflict of interest screen which has been established and will be followed. My Chief of Staff is an outstanding member of the community and a deep commitment to agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Grant Gray McKenzie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that was the same talking points that he gave to me on January the 25th, but we found out just recently from the Ethics Commissioner that her new ruling requires that its Chief of Staff not engage with the TPP, not have any involvement with regards to the egg industry, and have nothing to do with the supply management system. So I ask the Minister, given the Commissioner's clear ruling, can the Minister guarantee that since day one in his office, she has had absolutely zero to do with any of these crucial files?
Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I can assure my honourable colleague that my Chief of Staff has completed all the guidelines required by the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, and she will follow the guidelines. Does my honourable colleague indicate that all we want to have work in agriculture is people that know nothing about agriculture?
The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
So, Mr. Speaker, let's kind of be clear. So we've now got a Minister of Agriculture whose Chief of Staff can't talk about eggs, can't talk about supply management, and even can't talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. If she's been involved in any of these files in the last 6 months, it's a conflict of interest. That's what we knew from the beginning. The Minister refused to listen to us. So how can the Minister assure farmers and processors that his Chief of Staff has not been using this job for personal gain?
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and I'm surprised that he would indicate that such a competent lady would be in this line. I am truly disappointed, Mr. Speaker. I think that my honourable colleague understands that the Ethics Commissioner has ruled, and all guidelines submitted by the Conflict of Interest Commissioner will be followed. But again, do you just want somebody in agriculture that knows nothing about agriculture? I think not.
When the Minister says you, I hope he's speaking to the Chair, and then again, maybe not. The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, actually, Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed that actually he's criticised in the Ethics Commissioner for making the comments about what you can do and what you can't. Because the Minister of Agriculture has hired his Chief of Staff, a major stakeholder in one of the largest egg producers and processing companies in Canada. Well, now she's prohibited from supporting supply management, the egg industry, any trade issues, particularly around the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So, why did he leave supply management and free trade in the hands of an individual who isn't allowed to talk about them?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my honourable colleague wants to be careful of what my Chief of Staff is involved in and is not involved in. She had a career of her own, Mr. Speaker. She has a career of her own. But the Conflict of Interest Commissioner has set guidelines. I've indicated quite clearly this House a number of times she will follow the guidelines, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Thank you.
Last week, PAOK Tutik called on the federal government to ensure the upcoming inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls meets Inuit concerns. Funding is needed to support the participation of Indigenous peoples, including access to healing and support services. And action is needed now to prevent violence. There's no need to wait till the end of the inquiry in order to act. Will the government listen and provide full support for the full participation of Indigenous women? And will they act now to prevent violence?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and we certainly like to thank Patuki and IKT for their input into this process. As you know, missing and murdered Indigenous women has been a priority for us since we've taken government. We're committed to see this inquiry through. We're determined, Mr. Speaker, to work with all of those that have been impacted to ensure that this inquiry has the outcomes that are necessary for healing and for reconciliation for so many women and children and families across our country.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, everyone seems to understand the need for urgent action on the diafiltered milk issue, except the Liberal government. Yesterday, AgroPure announced that they were discontinuing use of diafiltered milk, and dairy producers criticized the government once again for its negligence on this file. The Liberal government should be ashamed. The minister said that this was an emotional issue for producers. Mr. Speaker, this is an economic issue because the producers are losing millions of dollars. When will the Liberal government do their job? And when will the Minister of Agriculture do his?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague's question and concern. The Liberal Party implemented supply management and will defend supply management. We recognise that this is an important issue for dairy farmers, and we're working to reach a long-term solution that will work for all of the dairy sector across this nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have announced the building of a monument in Ottawa to commemorate labour unions. Unfortunately, building a monument or a memorial to the veterans of the Afghanistan war is still pending. Clearly, even if these veterans, some of them gave their lives for Canada, the Liberals are unable to prioritize a memorial for their honour. Why does this Liberal government have the political will to go forward with some memorials, but visibly is unable to honour the 40,000 Afghanistan veterans?
I thank the member for his question, and I can assure him that commemoration is important to this government. We will continue to honour those who have served from Vimy Ridge to Juno Beach through peacekeeping efforts in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, from the Gulf War to the Afghan theatre in a dignified fashion. We're working close with the Ministry of Heritage to see this project through, and rest assured it will be done.
Mr. Speaker, protecting the members of the Canadian Armed Forces and their families must be a priority for every government. Last week, the media tagged along on General Vance's tour to Iraq and got some FaceTime with Special Operation Forces. The problem is they actually published the faces of the soldiers they met. When this happened under our government, we took full responsibility and fixed the mistake. Simple question. Will the Defence Minister own up to this error and ensure the identities of our troops are protected?
Mr. Secretary for National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the safety of our Canadian Armed Forces personnel and the security of our operations are of primary concern. Canadian forces thoroughly assess and implement appropriate measures to ensure the safety and security. The members who were recently profiled were pre-selected and approved by the Canadian Armed Forces leadership.
Well, Mr. Speaker, General Vance described the Prime Minister's decision to triple Canada's ground troops in Iraq while withdrawing Canadian air support as an overall riskier mission. The images published in the media last week could expose Canadian Special Forces members and their families to even greater risks. When I was a parliamentary secretary and this happened under the previous Conservative government, I stood in this House, took responsibility, and we fixed the problem. Will the parliamentary secretary admit that allowing these photos to be published was a mistake and take the necessary actions to protect and ensure the safety of our troops and their families?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as I recollect the honourable members standing in this House in a previous Parliament, it was because they wanted some photo ops. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, we have fixed that system. And accordingly, the members who were recently profiled were approved by the Canadian Armed Forces leadership. It had nothing to do with the Minister of Defence.
The honourable member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2016 sets up funds for electric vehicles as well as infrastructure for fuel substitutes. These initiatives will allow for a greater number of low-carbon emission vehicles and will be just as beneficial for our economy as for the environment. Can the Minister of Natural Resources explain the support offered by the government during the transition to low-carbon emission transport? Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Clean technologies are a central part of our clean growth plan to transition to the economy of tomorrow. Yesterday, we announced that funding proposals are now being accepted under 2 new electric vehicle and alternative fuel infrastructure initiatives. As part of Budget 2016, this $62 million program will put more low-carbon vehicles on the road, which will decrease emissions. By investing in electric vehicle technology, and we will show national leadership on climate change while our economy grows.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Indigenous Affairs said that Canada's resource sector was being put on notice. There's been fustian words and mixed messages coming from the Liberal front bench regarding what Indigenous free, prior and informed consent actually means. Will the Liberals clarify to Canadians if implementing the UN Declaration gives a veto over critical infrastructure projects?
The Honourable Prime Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her question. As I've stated before, and the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs have said before, we do not see a strong working relationship with Indigenous people as an impediment to resource development of any kind in this country. In fact, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Bellegarde, who's the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, has already said that veto is not utilized in free, prior and informed consent in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I think collaboration and working together is the way forward, and that's the path we're on.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
In 2015, the federal court banned fish farms in BC from using diseased Atlantic salmon in open net pens. The risks to wild salmon were, and still are, unacceptable. But the Conservatives, on behalf of a foreign-owned company, appealed the court's decision. Not only is the Liberal government continuing this appeal, shockingly, it's fast-tracking the effort to overturn the ruling. Why is the government continuing with this Conservative approach, fighting the court ruling and putting BC wild salmon at risk?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for that question. Mr. Speaker, I'd like the member to know that this is an issue that has been recently brought to my attention. I've had discussions with the Minister of Justice on this, and I'd like to inform him that I plan on meeting with her to discuss this further in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Scarborough Rouge Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Several weeks ago, the Minister of Veterans Affairs and I met with our wounded soldiers in my riding of Scarborough Rouge Park as they were training for this year's Invictus Games. As you may be aware, the Scarborough Pan Am Centre will co-host the 2017 Invictus Games. Can the Minister advise us as to how this government will be supporting our soldiers and our veterans in representing Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
I would like to thank the member from Scarborough Rouge Park for his question and his care and compassion he shows to veterans each and every day. I can tell you the Invictus Games are a great opportunity for our injured soldiers to take part in competition as well as to rebuild their lives with camaraderie. I can tell you also it was a great honor to be in Toronto with the Prime Minister and Prince Harry, where we saw our injured soldiers head off to Orlando, where they did us proud. I'm also proud to announce that we are supporting the 2017 Invictus Games to the tune of $10 million.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, 21 years ago, Jean Chrétien's Liberals closed the Royal Military College in Saint-Jean, which they felt was unnecessary. The former Conservative government corrected this situation by reopening the institution in 2008 and promising to bring back university studies. When asked about the subject last Saturday in Montreal, the minister was skittish. Can the minister confirm that he does intend to bring university studies back to the Saint-Jean Military College in Quebec?
National Defense.
As the honourable member will know, Mr. Speaker, the minister has initiated an entire defence review process in which we have invited all members to engage. And clearly the issue of the reopening of the Saint-Jean College is of utmost importance to the minister and to my colleague who has tirelessly promoted this reopening. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that all members do engage in the defence review process, and certainly that would be one of the serious considerations.
Member for Saanich Filings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. For the recently announced public engagement and consultation process on electoral reform to have any legitimacy, I completely agree with the Honourable Minister that we must all, on all sides of this place, set partisanship aside. Therefore, my question to the Prime Minister is, can he give this place his word that the Liberal members of Parliament on that committee will be free to vote in the interests of Canadian democracy and not merely for partisan advantage?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made the commitment in the last election to ensure that this was the last election to be held under first past the post. We are keeping that promise with a process that reflects our shared values of fairness, inclusiveness, gender equity, openness, and mutual respect. On the issue of committee members, I can assure the leader of the Green Party that I will no more control the Liberal members on that committee than she will control the Green member on that committee.
Order. Order. Shh. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Her Excellency Datuk Seri Azalina Osman Said, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia. I would also like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Brian Gallant, Premier of New Brunswick.
There is a point of order for the honourable member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Yes, there was talk of a lot of accomplishments during question period, and in a context of transparency and openness, I would like it to seek unanimous consent to simply table the journal for the House of Commons from the 22nd of April 2015.
Is about the copy of the tabling of the agreement on land.
Apparently, there is no unanimous consent.
Je n'imagine pas que le député est tellement surpris de ça, mais
I assume that the member is not overly surprised by that, but at any rate.
Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, Bracket 8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's response to 6 petitions. And if I may, Mr. Speaker, while I'm on my feet, I would also like to, at this time, move, seconded by the member from Orleans, that the House do now proceed to orders of the day.